The Star Ocean series is one that is very important to me as a JRPG lover. I was introduced to the series through the fantastic Star Ocean Till the End of Time, a game which I still believe to be one of the top JRPGs of all time. When I bought my PSP, First Departure was the very first game I purchased for it. I was glad I did. I was addicted to this game, as well as its sequel, Second Evolution. The Star Ocean series hit a couple of low points with the fans that caused the franchise to fade from the limelight, and with Star Ocean The Divine Force, the game that Tri-Ace was hoping would revive the franchise, coming out to middling reviews and sales, the fate of both the series and Tri-Ace as a developer are uncertain. But even if the series dies, it won't take away the great game experiences we already have. The release of Divine Force actually made me want to replay First Departure, which I recently did. I'd like to share some thoughts. First Departure is actually a remake of the first Star Ocean game, released for the Super Famicom in 1996 that never left Japan. The remake came out for the PSP in the US in 2008. It was much more in line with the look and features of the second story, so it's not quite the same game as the Super Famicom version, but it's the one we can play in English. Also, I consider the PSP a retro console at this point, so I think it still qualifies for the series. Side note, this version of the game has been remastered as First Departure R and released on the Switch and PS4 if you want to give it a try and you don't want to dig up a PSP or use an emulator. Star Ocean follows Roddick, a member of a cat-like race called the Fellpool, who is part of the Town Watch with his friends Millie and Dorn. They make the classic JRPG protagonist mistake of complaining about how boring things are, so of course their planet gets hit with a disease that starts turning everyone into stone. And unluckily, Dorn gets infected. While they go looking for a cure, things go from fantasy to sci-fi as they meet Ronix, basically a Star Trek captain with this haircut, and Ilya, his science officer whose victory line was burned into my brain for many months.
Well, I'd say that's worth 10 out of 10.
After going aboard their spaceship and being given some complicated exposition, they determine that the only way to cure the disease is to get a sample from the original source, the Demon King Asmodeus, who lived on their planet 300 years ago. So, naturally, they break Federation law and travel back in time and go on a wild adventure to face the Demon King, along the way making allies, learning the history of the world, and uncovering a plot with ramifications into the modern day. The way it's setting combines traditional fantasy and the hero's journey with sci-fi with serious Star Trek vibes, gives it a unique flavor, which I think still stands out in its application even though combining fantasy with sci-fi has since become a JRPG staple. The writing can be a bit cliched, made worse at points by some stilted English voice acting. Not that I blame the voice actors, some lines are weird enough to read, much less hear out loud, but it gets the job done. The characters all feel unique with distinct personalities, which really shines during the game's bonding moments. The way the characters interact and form relationships with one another feels impactful, even when there isn't too much in terms of dialogue. Players are also encouraged through the private action system to seek out more of the character's history, goals, and personality. While it's not the level of Second Evolution, it's definitely enough to keep you invested in wanting to see it through to the end. One of the unique features of First Departure, and what gives it its replay value, are the decisions you make throughout the game that can have an impact on the story. The main path of the story doesn't change, but your decisions will impact which party members you recruit and how they bond with each other. There are 8 slots in the party, 4 of which are taken up by the main cast. There are 9 other recruitable characters that can fill up the other 4 slots, though it's not quite so easy as picking and choosing who you want. Some will only join you if certain conditions are met, such as if another character is or is not in your party, and others will require you to go out of your way and make specific decisions to recruit. Once your party is full, you can't recruit anyone else. Depending on who is in your party and their levels of affection for one another, there will be changes in the dialogue, scenes will play out slightly differently, and various parts of the ending is changed. It's impossible to get all the characters in one playthrough, so if you want to see all the endings, you gotta go through it again. Many members of the original Tri-Ace team had come straight from the development of Tales of Phantasia. The similarities are apparent in the battle system. It features real-time battles where the player controls one character, while 3 other characters are controlled by AI and follow tactics set by the player. The controlled character will automatically move towards a targeted enemy when the player attacks, or into range if using one of 2 set abilities. For those who have played a lot of the early Tales games, this will feel immediately familiar. It's pretty simple, with a real challenge coming more from managing your team's resources, but I've always been a fan of this kind of combat. Some of the spell animations can be a little long, which can really draw out random encounters to a frustrating degree though. Now onto one of the more complicated systems in the game, skills and specialties. You earn SP by leveling up and at certain points in the story, which can be put into skills that improve your combat ability, allow you to find things in the field, or allow you to craft certain items. I'll admit, the first couple of times I played First Departure, I didn't touch the crafting at all because I really couldn't figure it out, so I just put all my SP into combat skills, but for some fans this really made the game. I'll try to briefly explain it just so you can see why it confused me. So you buy books to unlock sets of skills, then you spend SP to level up those skills. The effectiveness of some skills can be affected by the character's talents. By leveling up certain combinations of skills, you get specialties, including item creation specialties. If multiple characters have the right combination of specialties, you unlock super specialties. Each item creation specialty, of which there are 11, requires its own materials, some of which need to be bought and some of which need to be found. A character's talents will also determine what they can and cannot craft. It really isn't obvious what a craft will do, but through experimentation, or looking up a guide, you can not only create better equipment than what you can find in the shop, but also find things that can buff the party in and out of battle, improve their battle skills, and even commit health insurance fraud. That's freedom of choice. One last thing I want to touch on is the soundtrack. Like a lot of JRPGs published by Enix at the time, Star Ocean had a great soundtrack, which you have been listening to this entire time. It was composed by Motoi Sakuraba, whose work you will be familiar with if you are a fan of the Tale series. It manages to match the tone of the setting both in the fantasy and sci-fi areas, and hearing any of these tracks brings a wave of nostalgia for this era of JRPGs. Star Ocean First Departure was a great game in its time, and it's still a good time for anyone looking to scratch that old school JRPG itch, but who don't want to make a big time commitment. At less than 20 hours for a playthrough, it won't eat up as much of your time as many other JRPGs of the era, and since it's been remastered for the PS4 and Switch, it is pretty easy to get a hold of. Though if what you're looking for is the definitive best Star Ocean experience, that still belongs to Till the End of Time, though unless you have a PS2 still lying around, you'd have to play an emulated version. I wish the Star Ocean series and Tri-Ace were in a better place. I received the new game, The Divine Force, for Christmas, but haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I do intend to despite its middling reviews, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it, as even the Star Ocean games that most people didn't like, I found to still be decent experiences. Tri-Ace has been responsible for some of my favorite JRPG experiences, including Radiata Stories and Valkyria Profile, and I hope they'll be able to pull out of their current issues and continue making games. That's it for the review. If you want to see another retro JRPG review, why not check out my review of Xenogears? Or if you're a fan of JRPG tropes, maybe peek at our short sketches where we have a little fun with them. Real quick before I end the video, I just wanted to discuss the channel for those few of you who might be interested in why we haven't uploaded in a bit. I got real sick over the holidays, and by the time I had recovered, I had fallen super far behind on my work, and it's only now that I've just about caught up on my deadlines, and since I'm the one who does all the writing and editing, that means nothing got made. But I'm hoping we'll start being regular again soon. For those 5 of you who enjoy our sketches, firstly, thank you. Secondly, we'll be filming a new batch next week and hopefully be uploading them the following one. I also want to make this kind of JRPG discussion/review video more often, since you were all super positive about the Xenogears review. I'm not sure if they will all be retro reviews like this, or if I might mix in some more recent stuff, or possibly more broad looks at franchises instead of individual games. We're still kind of figuring stuff out. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Thanks for sticking around. If you have any JRPG recommendations, particularly anything niche, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will add them to my impossible quest of playing every worthwhile JRPG ever made. See you next time.